All right.
Well, clampologists, now we're going to learn how to measure water clarity with the Secchi Disk. And I have the Secchi Disk stretched out on the dock here. It's kind of a good thing to practice on the dock first before you go out in the boat, but you don't have to. But when you're out in the boat, things are kind of rocking, and you have to keep your boat sometimes stabilized if it's a windy day, so it's kind of okay to practice on your dock if you have a dock. So the first thing to notice is where the markings are. So what you're going to be doing is lowering this into the water until you can no longer see it. This black and white contrast disappears. And then you record that measurement on your data sheet. And then you pull it up from the water. And right at the point where you can see the black and white contrast again, you take that measurement. And then on your data sheet, you record both those measurements and then calculate the average. So before you get started, the first thing is to be sure you know what your markings are, because traditionally our clamp Secchi discs are marked every 0.1 meter with a black mark, and every half-meter increment they'll have a red mark. So this would be 0.5. And at meter increments, the red mark will be followed by a black mark, and the number of black marks tells you how many meters the rope is at that position. So for example, here later on, here's another meter increment mark, and it has 3 black marks because we're at 3 meters. And once again, where it's red, they're just a half meter. So that makes it kind of easy when you're using your Secchi disc. This year we ordered some more Secchi disc, and of course the ropes were marked in a different pattern, so that's why I'm going over this now. So the new ones, you'll notice they're just like the old one. The meter increment is at red, followed by black dots representing the number of meters it is at that length, like here's 3 meters. But the half meter mark is not marked red, it's just black. 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5. It's black. So just be aware of that before you start taking your measurements. Don't be looking for a point red on every half meter on some of them. So to use your Secchi disc, you should take off your sunglasses. And you want to do it on the shady side of your boat. In this case, we'll do it the shady side of the dock. And we're going to lower it into the water until it disappears. So West Okoboji is a very unique lake. It's probably the only lake in Iowa where you can lower it all the way off your dock and still see it. So you can see the Secchi disc is still visible even though it's now sitting on the bottom. That's really rare for a lake in Iowa. But let's pretend I couldn't see it at that point. You can see where the water surface touches the rope. That's the part where you want to take your measurements. So you could use a clothespin to mark that point, or just memorize with your eyes where that is. So assuming this is where it disappeared, we'd take that measurement and then you would raise it up slowly to where you could see it again, and then take that measurement. And sometimes, just depending on what kind of day it is, what the water quality conditions are, sometimes the raised and the lowered could be the same number. Sometimes it varies quite a bit. So that's why we take those 2 measurements and average them. So you enter that on your data sheet, and one more thing you have to fill out on your data sheet before you get back to the lab is there's a column to the right of the data sheet where you enter how much water to filter, and there's a table on your data sheet that will explain using your measurement how much water that you need to filter. Actually, you won't be filtering in 2020, we will be filtering, but we still want you to be the one to enter that information on the data sheet. So that's using the Secchi disc, and as always, look at your manual if you have any questions.